Hey guys, how are you doing? This is Troy with Mainstream Linux. Today we're going to be taking a quick look at Ubuntu 20.10 Groovy Gorilla. Well, this is the new release, Ubuntu 20.10 Groovy Gorilla. Let's take a look at some interesting information here. I'm presently running an Oracle VirtualBox. I've assigned it 3.8 gigs, 4 gigs of memory. I'm running on an Intel Core i5. I've assigned it 4 of my cores. It's 20.10, 64-bit. It's running on GNOME version 3.38.1. And what I'm going to do first of all is I like to change it to the dark mode. That's just my personal preference. So we'll change that. Let's look at some of the settings here. We've got network, Bluetooth, background. You can change the backgrounds. That one's mighty bright. Let's stick with that one. Appearance I've already changed. Let's make the icons a little smaller. I've always liked that. Let's go ahead and move that to the bottom. I'll leave it on the left. We'll just play with it a little bit. Notifications. This is definitely, you can set up which applications will be using the notifications. Privacy, location services. Well, when you install this, it'll ask you if you want to let Ubuntu know where your location is and etc. But I usually leave that off. Don't like to be tracked around. Online accounts, these are awesome here, especially if you're using any kind of Google storage accounts like Google Drive. When you log in here, when you go over to your files menu, it'll actually have your Google Drive under your files menu, so you can access your files right from there. Sharing, screen sharing, media sharing, of course, sound, power, displays. I'm actually running at 1680 by 1050. For some reason, the VirtualBox wouldn't let me go to 1920 by 1080, so I'm sorry, it's kind of cropped on the sides. Mouse, touchpad. And that's another thing with this newer kernel, which we'll go over here in a second. For some reason, my touchpad is not working, so I'm having to use a USB mouse. So if you hear the clicks in the background, I do apologize. But for some reason, this kernel doesn't recognize my touchpad anymore. But it may be the fact that I'm running an Intel Core i5 10th generation IdeaPad 3. Bought it this past summer, so maybe in the upcoming Linux kernel update, it'll fix that issue. Keyboard, printers, shortcuts. But anyway, let's go ahead and close that out. Let's zip on over and look at some of the release notes on this release. This is Groovy Gorilla 12.10. It includes the 5.8 Linux kernel. Also includes numerous updates and added support. The long-term support release of 12.04 is actually on the 5.4 Linux kernel. That was released back in April. Some of the updates we have right here are airtime queue limits for better Wi-Fi connection quality. I did notice that on some Linux distributions, I have issues on this laptop of the Wi-Fi being recognized, but fired Ubuntu right up and it noticed it right off the bat, which was a plus. So BTRFS RAID 1 with 3 and 4 copies and more checksum alternatives. USB 4 Thunderbolt 3 protocol support added. That is an awesome update in the kernel. That's great. x86 enables 5-level paging support by default. This might be some good news out there. Intel Gen 11 Ice Lake and Gen 12 Tiger Lake graphics support are now included in Ubuntu with the 5.8 kernel. Initial support for the AMD family, the 19.8 Zen 3s, of course. Thermal pressure tracking for systems for better task placement, WRT CPU core, XFS online repair. Overlay FS pairing with VirtIO-FS, general notification queue for key and keyring notifications, mount changes, etc. Now I have noticed running this on a different machine and playing around with a little bit that the notification handling of Ubuntu 20.10 seems to be better and less cluttered than 20.04. May just be my personal opinion, but I think that has made a definite improvement. Active state power management for improved power savings of PCIe to PCI devices. And we also have initial support for Power 10. Tool change upgrades. It comes with refreshed state-of-the-art tool chains, upstream releases of glibc 2.32, OpenJDK 11, Rust C 1.41, GCC 10, LLVM 11, Python 3.8.6, Ruby 2.7.0, PHP 7.4.9, Perl 5.30, and Golang 1.13. Security improvements. NF Tables is now default backend for the firewall, which I think would be great, especially for those that use a firewall. And with this desktop, Ubuntu 20.10 is the first release of Ubuntu ever to actually have a desktop image that you can load right on your Raspberry Pi 4, which for developers and people like that, people that are geeks like me, that's definitely going to be something fun to have around. Ubuntu 20.10 includes the latest version of Genome, version 3.38. I think it's actually 3.381. It's got activities overview, definitely increase to the user experience and better performance. Now, the updated applications that are included with this, you're going to get version 81 of Firefox, which I think is great, version 7.0.2 of LibreOffice, version 7.8.3.2 of Thunderbird, updated subsystems, BlueZ 5.55, Network Manager 1.26.2. Now, they do have some updates to Ubuntu Server, OpenStack, and Cloud Images, Raspberry Pi. You can just kind of scroll down and look that up on your own. But let's go ahead and close out of this. Let's go. Yes, I want to close the tabs. All right, let's zip on over here. You're going to have out of the box your additional drivers, which you always get with Ubuntu. If you have any kind of issues when you first install or when you first boot up into a live USB, you can go over to additional drivers and be able to get whatever might need to be supported. You've got Solitaire. You've also got your archive manager when you want to download and be able to open something up and look at it before you actually extract it. Got your vault for your backups. Calculator. Got your nice little basic calculator, and it also comes with advanced financial programming and keyboard mode, which I think is awesome. Let's go ahead and close out of that, and let's get back over here. Your calendar, and you can integrate this when you log in with your online accounts, whether it be your Microsoft account or your Google account. You can sync your calendar up with it right here. Plus, another great thing here is it'll actually tell you what the weather is that you're presently in. So if that comes in handy, need to know the weather on your calendar, Ubuntu's got it. Cheese for cameras and digital cameras. Disk usage analysis. I love this tool. I use it quite often. Of course, that's not going to do me much right now, seeing how I'm running in a virtual machine. Document viewer, document scanner are your files. And I just have to go over this. I think this is one of the best looking themes that Ubuntu has had in quite some time. I love the look of the folders against the dark background. It's a very polished it's a very polished theme, and it just kind of lets you know that, hey, they, not just for function, they want you to have a distribution that is a good looking distribution. There's a lot of other ones out there like the Pop OSs of the world and the Elementaries of the world that have their different look and their scheme of things, but for the Ubuntu team, I think this is a very, very strong and very, very good looking theme. So let's zip back over here. Gparted, of course. Firefox, we've already discussed. Your install Ubuntu LibreOffice suite. Like I said, it comes with the 7.0 out of the box, which is better than some of the distros you're going to be getting out there right now that are still coming with the 6.4 out of the box. But there it is, 7.0.2.2. So you're getting the most, a good up-to-date version of LibreOffice. Live patch, logs, Mahjong, if you're into games, mines, there's your password locker, power statistics. Let's pull that up and see what we're looking at here. Laptop battery, yeah, it should be fully charged. I'm working on it, or at least 96%. Software update, Shotwell Photo Viewer, which is a really great photo viewer. If you haven't used it, you need to. Screenshot, Rhythmbox, Ramina, software update, startup applications. This is great to go in there, and as you start using your machine more and more and more, you'll see other applications that have slid themselves in here. You can click over, remove those, improve your boot up time, and not have to worry about them slowing your machine down. Startup Disk Creator, if you want to try another version of Linux, you can go in here, create yourself a startup, boot from the USB, and roll with it. System monitor, let's see what we're running right out of the box. This is a virtual machine, so I've assigned it 4 gigs of RAM. It's presently using 1.2 of those. Processors, I've assigned it 4, so we're at a whopping CPU usage of about 4 or 5%, and nothing coming out of our network. If you was on Windows right now, that thing would be phoning home, but you're not. You're on a good Linux distribution. You don't have to worry about that. You got your terminal pop up. Still, I love the purple background in the Ubuntu terminal. Some people don't, but it's one thing I do like. A Thunderbird mail, of course. To-do list. You got a to-do list. So if you're on Microsoft or Google's infrastructure, you can switch right over to the Ubuntu to-do list, and you're good to go. Ubuntu Software Center, and then of course an app to play your videos. That's just a real quick overview of Ubuntu. Just my personal opinion. I actually started on Ubuntu back in 2006, 2007, 2008. I mean, back in that time frame when I was putting my toe in the water for Linux. And Ubuntu was it was it. It was the main thing that everybody was talking about. You wanted to move to Linux, Ubuntu, Ubuntu, Ubuntu. I think it's kind of got stagnant over the last couple years. I mean, they had some real exciting times there. They were on Genome 2, and then they come out with Unity, which was their own thing, and they were pushing it, and you had pushback from the community saying, we don't like Unity, go back to Genome, and then now they're in Genome 3. Everything's just sometimes just seems so discombobulated in the Linux community. I'm saying this right now, 20.04, which is a long-term support, and 20.10, which I am showing you and giving you a quick look right now, is a solid operating system. I just don't think there's excitement around it anymore. You look at other distros, like the Manjaros of the world, the Solaces, the Pop OSs, there seems to be this, there's just a little bit of excitement of the direction that they're going and what they're doing for the Linux community. But let me say this. When Ubuntu got big, I mean, you look back at 2006, 2007, 2008, there was not a lot of other competition. It was Ubuntu. So, I'm not judging it and I'm not putting it down. Ubuntu's a solid distribution, solid operating system. If you're leaving Windows and wanting to come to Linux, Ubuntu's a good starting point. But that's all I got to say. 20.10 Groovy Gorilla. Very impressed. Looks good. A lot of features that I think you'll enjoy. And I think you ought to download it, throw it on a USB, and give it a shot. Thank you for watching Mainstream Linux today. Please like, subscribe, and keep your eye open for our future videos. Thank you.